The silver ship moved slowly through space, its sensors recording everything on the blue planet below. Commander Zex watched the screens with growing alarm. His 4 eyes blinked in patterns that showed deep worry. "Show me the recordings again," he said to his crew. The main screen lit up with images from Earth. Humans walked beside large 4-legged creatures with sharp teeth and powerful jaws. The beasts had thick fur and eyes that seemed to watch everything. Some were as big as the humans themselves. "Look at this one," said Officer Krill, pointing with one of his tentacles. The image showed a human child, small and defenseless, lying next to a massive creature with teeth like knives. The beast's mouth was open, showing rows of white fangs. "The creature could kill the young human in seconds," Zex whispered. Yet the human shows no fear. More images appeared on the screen. Humans running with packs of these beasts. Humans feeding them. Humans allowing the creatures into their homes, their sleeping areas, even near their offspring. "Perhaps the humans are slaves to these beasts," suggested Navigator Yorn. His green skin turned pale blue with fear. "Maybe the creatures have taken control of human minds." Zex studied the images more carefully. The humans did not look like slaves. They seemed happy, even joyful around the beasts. But that made no sense at all. "Or maybe," said Krill slowly, "the humans are more dangerous than we thought. Maybe they keep these killing machines as weapons." The crew fell silent. In all their travels across the galaxy, they had never seen anything like this. Most intelligent species avoided predators. They built walls and barriers to keep dangerous animals away. They used technology to protect themselves. But humans seemed to invite danger into their very homes. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Zex ordered. "Mark this species as potentially dangerous. They appear to control apex predators for unknown purposes." The message traveled across space at light speed. When it reached the council chambers on Nexus Prime, it caused immediate concern. Council leader Morthak read the report 3 times. His scaled hands shook slightly as he turned the pages. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of species whispered among themselves. "Silence," Morthak called out. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "We have received disturbing news about the species called humans." He activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The same images that had worried Commander Zex now floated before the entire council. A gasp went through the chamber. Representative Flux, whose people looked like walking crystals, made a sound like breaking glass. "Impossible," she said. "No civilized species would do such a thing." "The evidence is clear," said Morthak. "These humans live alongside predators that could easily destroy them. They allow these beasts near their young. They even seem to care for them." "It makes no logical sense," added Counselor Vex from the planet Rigid. His people valued logic above all else. Either the humans have lost their minds, or they are using these creatures as weapons of war. The debate went on for hours. Some council members thought humans were too dangerous to contact. Others believed they might be victims who needed rescue from their animal captors. "We must learn more," declared Morthak finally. "But we will proceed with extreme caution." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen worked in her laboratory. She had no idea that aliens were watching her planet. She had no idea that her golden retriever, Buddy, was being classified as a dangerous predator by beings from across the galaxy. Buddy lay peacefully under Sarah's desk, his tail occasionally thumping against the floor when she reached down to pet him. Sometimes he would yawn, showing his white teeth, completely unaware that those same teeth had terrified an entire alien crew. Sarah's work focused on preparing humanity for possible contact with alien life. She studied languages, communication methods, and cultural differences. She wanted humans to make a good first impression when they finally met other intelligent species. She had no way of knowing that first impression was already forming, and it was not good. The Council's surveillance continued for months. They watched humans in cities, on farms, in forests and mountains. Everywhere they looked, they saw the same strange relationship between humans and their beast companions. They saw humans throwing objects for the beasts to chase. The aliens thought this was combat training. They saw humans grooming the beasts, cleaning their fur and checking their health. The aliens thought this was preparation for battle. They saw humans speaking to the beasts in gentle voices, and the beasts responding with what looked like aggressive displays, showing teeth, making loud noises, moving in quick, excited patterns. They are definitely planning something, Zex reported to the council. The humans train these creatures daily. They maintain them in peak physical condition, and the beasts seem eager to serve. The council grew more worried with each report. Some species had already voted to avoid human space entirely. Others wanted to strike first, before humans could use their beast armies against peaceful worlds. But a few council members urged patience. Elder Nyx of the Thoughtful Ones raised her ancient voice in the chamber. "We have studied thousands of species," she said slowly. "We have seen many strange things. Perhaps we do not understand what we are seeing." "The evidence is clear," protested Counselor Vex. "Humans keep predators. This is dangerous behavior." "Clear to us," Elder Nyx replied. "But maybe not true." Her words planted a seed of doubt in some minds, but most council members remained convinced that humans posed a serious threat. The final decision came when humans began reaching out to space themselves. Earth's radio signals had been detected years ago, but now humans were actively trying to make contact. They sent messages of peace and friendship into the void. "They seek to spread their influence," Morthak announced to the council. "We must respond carefully. We will allow limited contact, but we must learn the truth about their beast companions." The council crafted a careful message back to Earth. They invited humans to send a representative to Nexus Prime for formal first contact. But they included a warning that any dangerous creatures would not be allowed. When the message reached Earth, it caused celebration around the world. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for generations. Dr. Sarah Chen was chosen as Earth's first ambassador to the stars. As she prepared for the journey, she made one simple request that would change everything. She asked to bring Buddy along for emotional support. The aliens monitoring Earth's communications interpreted this as confirmation of their worst fears. The humans were planning to bring one of their trained predators to the council chambers themselves. Emergency sessions were called. Security was increased. Some council members demanded that the meeting be canceled entirely. But Elder Nyx's voice carried weight. "If we are to understand humans," she said, "we must see them as they truly are, even if that means facing our fears." The stage was set for a meeting that would either bring two civilizations together or drive them apart forever. Neither side truly understood what they were walking into, but both believed they were prepared for danger. In her small apartment on Earth, Sarah scratched Buddy behind the ears and smiled. "Ready for an adventure, boy?" she asked. Buddy's tail wagged happily. He had no idea he was about to become the most misunderstood creature in galactic history. The Council Station Nexus Prime was the largest structure ever built in space. It floated between 3 stars, drawing power from their light. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its many ports every day. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the window of her assigned quarters, watching the alien ships come and go. Each one looked different from the others. Some were smooth and curved like eggs. Others had sharp angles and glowing engines. A few seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. "Amazing, isn't it, Buddy?" she said to her companion. Buddy wagged his tail and pressed his nose against the window. He could not understand what he was seeing, but he could sense Sarah's excitement. That was enough to make him happy. Sarah had spent months preparing for this meeting. She studied every piece of information Earth had about alien cultures. She practiced breathing exercises to stay calm. She rehearsed her speeches until she could say them perfectly, but nothing had prepared her for the fear she saw in alien eyes when she walked through the station. Every creature they passed stopped and stared at Buddy. Some backed away quickly. Others made sounds that Sarah guessed were alarms or warnings. A few simply froze in place as if moving might trigger an attack. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered to herself. "He's just a dog." But to the aliens, Buddy was something else entirely. They saw his powerful muscles moving under his golden fur. They watched his head turn to track movement, noting how his eyes locked onto potential targets. When he panted, they saw rows of sharp white teeth that could tear through flesh. Security Officer Grenthak followed them at a distance, his weapon ready. He had volunteered for this dangerous duty because he was known for his bravery, but watching the human's beast companion made his heart race with fear. The creature moved with the fluid grace of a born killer, its ears swiveled to catch every sound. Its nose twitched constantly, gathering information from scents in the air. Every movement seemed calculated and purposeful. When they reached the council chambers, a crowd of aliens had gathered to watch. Word had spread quickly through the station that the humans had actually brought one of their predator companions. "Stay calm," Sarah told herself. "Just explain everything clearly." The great doors opened and she walked into the chamber with Buddy at her side. The reaction was immediate. Several council members made sounds of alarm. Others activated personal shields. A few actually left their seats and moved to the back of the room. Council leader Morthak remained in his seat, but Sarah could see his scales shifting color with stress. "Ambassador Chen," he said carefully, "we welcome you to our council. However, we must ask about the creature you have brought with you." Sarah smiled, trying to project calm confidence. "This is Buddy, he's my dog. I brought him because he helps me stay relaxed in stressful situations." The translation devices worked perfectly, but the words they produced made no sense to most of the aliens listening. "You use this predator to control your emotional state?" asked Counselor Vex. His logical mind struggled to process this information. "Well, not exactly," Sarah said. "He's my companion, my friend. Dogs have lived with humans for thousands of years. They're part of our families." This explanation only made things worse. Representative Flux's crystal body rang like a broken bell. "You claim this creature is part of your family unit? But it could kill you at any moment." Sarah looked down at Buddy, who was sitting patiently beside her chair. His tongue hung out slightly, and his tail made soft thumping sounds against the floor. To her, he looked like the gentlest creature in the galaxy. "Buddy would never hurt me," she said. "He loves me and I love him. Dogs are loyal and protective. They would die before they let harm come to their human families." "Love?" Elder Nix spoke for the first time. Her ancient voice carried across the chamber. "You speak of emotional attachment to a predator?" "Yes," Sarah said simply. "Humans and dogs have shared this bond for thousands of generations. We hunt together, work together, play together. They understand our emotions and we understand theirs." The chamber filled with whispered conversations in dozens of languages. The concept Sarah described was completely foreign to most species represented there. They saw relationships as either beneficial partnerships or threats to be avoided. Counselor Vex leaned forward. "Show us this." "Partnership," he said. "Demonstrate how you control this beast." Sarah felt a flash of irritation. "I don't control him. We communicate." She turned to Buddy and said, "Sit, boy." Buddy immediately sat up straighter, his attention focused on Sarah's face. The aliens gasped. The creature had responded to verbal commands instantly, without hesitation. "Down," Sarah said next. Buddy lay down on the floor but kept his eyes on Sarah, waiting for whatever she might ask next. "Roll over." Buddy rolled onto his back, exposing his belly to the room full of strangers. To the aliens, this looked like a creature showing its most vulnerable areas while remaining ready to spring into action. "Now speak," Sarah said. Buddy barked once, a sharp sound that echoed through the chamber. Several council members activated their personal shields. Others reached for emergency buttons, but Sarah just smiled and scratched behind Buddy's ears. "Good boy," she said warmly. Buddy's tail wagged faster and he made a soft whining sound that Sarah knew meant happiness. The aliens saw and heard something completely different. They watched a human giving commands to a deadly predator, and the predator obeying instantly. They heard aggressive vocalizations and saw aggressive body language. "Remarkable," whispered Commander Zex, who had been invited to observe. "The level of training is beyond anything we have seen. The creature follows complex commands without question, but why does it show its belly?" asked Navigator Yorn. "That seems like a defensive posture. Perhaps it is showing trust," suggested Officer Krill. "Or maybe it is preparing to attack with its rear claws." Sarah could see the confusion and fear in the alien faces around her. Nothing she said seemed to help them understand. Every demonstration only made them more convinced that she was showing off a trained weapon. "Let me try to explain this differently," she said. She sat down on the floor next to Buddy. He immediately curled up beside her, resting his head on her leg. The aliens tensed, ready to intervene if the beast attacked, but instead Sarah gently stroked Buddy's fur. He closed his eyes and made a soft sound that humans would recognize as contentment. "This is not training," Sarah said quietly. "This is affection. Buddy stays close to me because he wants to be near me. I pet him because it makes us both feel good. We care about each other." "But it could bite you," protested Representative Flux. "Its teeth are right next to your vital areas." "He could," Sarah agreed, "but he won't. Not because I trained him not to, but because the idea would never occur to him. Hurting me would go against everything in his nature." Elder Nick studied the pair carefully. There was something in the human's voice, a quality she had never heard before when someone spoke about another creature. "You truly believe this animal cares for you?" she asked. "I know he does," Sarah replied, "just like I care for him. When I'm sad, he comforts me. When I'm happy, he shares my joy. When I'm in danger, he protects me, not because he has to, but because he wants to." The chamber fell silent. This concept was so alien to most of the council members that they struggled to even imagine it. Finally, Counselor Vex spoke. "This emotional attachment you describe, it seems to make you vulnerable. Does it not compromise your judgment?" Sarah thought about the question seriously. "Sometimes," she admitted, "I might take risks to protect Buddy that I wouldn't take for myself. But that's not weakness. That's love, and it makes me stronger in ways you might not understand." The session ended with more questions than answers. The council had seen demonstrations of the human-beast partnership, but they still did not truly understand what they had witnessed. As Sarah and Buddy returned to their quarters, Elder Nix remained in the chamber thinking. There had been something in the human's voice when she spoke about her companion, something the translator devices could not fully capture. Maybe there was more to this relationship than anyone realized. 3 days had passed since Sarah's first presentation to the council. The alien leaders spent hours in private meetings debating what they had seen. Some wanted to end contact with humanity immediately. Others argued for more study. Sarah waited in her quarters, growing more frustrated with each passing hour. Every attempt to explain her relationship with Buddy seemed to make things worse. The aliens saw danger where she saw love. They saw weapons training where she saw play. "We need to try a different approach," she told Buddy as she paced around the room. "They're not understanding what we're trying to tell them." Buddy tilted his head, watching her with concerned brown eyes. He could sense her stress even if he didn't understand the cause. Elder Nix finally convinced the council to allow one more demonstration. "Perhaps," she argued, "we need to see more of their interaction to understand it." Council leader Morthak was reluctant, but he agreed to a controlled experiment. "Very well, but it will take place in our most secure chamber, and we will have full security present." The secure chamber was a large, empty room with walls that could stop the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Viewing windows looked down from above where the council members could watch safely. Sarah entered the chamber with Buddy, feeling like they were in some kind of arena. The lights were bright and harsh. Cameras recorded their every movement. "Ambassador Chen," came Morthak's voice through speakers, "please demonstrate more of your partnership with your companion." Sarah took a deep breath. She had to make them understand somehow. "Okay, Buddy," she said softly. "Let's show them what we're really about." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a simple rubber ball. The aliens in the observation deck tensed, thinking it might be some kind of weapon or control device. "Fetch," Sarah said, throwing the ball across the room. Buddy's ears perked up immediately. His whole body seemed to vibrate with excitement. He raced after the ball, his paws skidding slightly on the smooth floor. The aliens watched in confusion as the predator chased what was clearly a harmless object. Why would a trained killer waste energy on something that posed no threat? Buddy picked up the ball in his mouth and came trotting back to Sarah, his tail wagging so hard his whole back end wiggled. "Good boy," Sarah said, her voice full of praise and joy. She threw the ball again, and again. Each time Buddy retrieved it eagerly and brought it back. "I don't understand," muttered Counselor Vex. "What is the purpose of this exercise? Is she testing the creature's speed? Its retrieval abilities?" But Elder Nix was beginning to notice something else. The human's face showed genuine happiness, not the satisfaction of a trainer with a successful student, but the joy of someone sharing a moment with a friend. "Look at her expression," Elder Nix whispered to the council member next to her. She is not focused on the creature's performance. She is enjoying the activity itself. Sarah tried something different next. She sat down on the floor and patted the ground next to her. "Come here, boy. Lie down." Buddy immediately came over and lay down beside her just as he had in the council chamber. But this time Sarah lay down too, curling up next to him. The aliens gasped in shock. The human had made herself completely vulnerable to the predator. She was at its mercy, with no way to defend herself. But instead of attacking, Buddy gently rested his head on Sarah's shoulder. His eyes closed halfway and his breathing became slow and peaceful. "This is what we do when I'm stressed or tired," Sarah said, speaking to the cameras. "Buddy comforts me. He makes me feel safe and loved." She began stroking his fur in long, gentle movements. Buddy's tail thumped softly against the floor. "He's not performing tricks," Sarah continued. "He's not following orders. He's being my friend." The council members watched in stunned silence as human and dog simply rested together. There was no display of dominance, no evidence of control or training, just two beings sharing peaceful companionship. "Impossible," breathed Commander Zex. "A predator cannot simply choose to be gentle." But that was exactly what they were seeing. Sarah sat up and looked directly at the observation windows. "Let me show you something else," she said. She stood and walked to the far side of the chamber. "Buddy, stay," she commanded. Buddy remained lying down, though his eyes followed her movement. Sarah then did something that made every alien in the room freeze with terror. She turned her back on the predator and walked slowly away from it. "She has lost her mind," whispered Representative Flux. "The creature could attack her from behind. She cannot see it, but Buddy didn't move. He stayed exactly where Sarah had asked him to stay, even though she was no longer watching him." Sarah walked all the way to the opposite wall, then turned around. "Come here, Buddy," she called. Buddy jumped up and ran to her. But instead of the aggressive charge the aliens expected, he simply sat down in front of her and looked up at her face expectantly. "That's trust," Sarah said to the cameras. "I trust him not to hurt me when I'm vulnerable. He trusts me to call him when I need him. That's what love looks like." Elder Nyx felt something shift in her understanding. The word the human kept using, love, was not in most alien vocabularies. The concept existed, but it was usually applied only to offspring or mates. But this human claimed to love a creature from an entirely different species. "Ambassador Chen," Elder Nyx's voice came through the speakers. "This love you speak of, how do you know the creature feels it as well?" Sarah smiled. "Watch," she said simply. She sat down and remained perfectly still. She didn't call Buddy or give him any commands. She just waited. Buddy looked at her for a moment, then walked over and lay down next to her. Without being asked, he rested his head in her lap and looked up at her with adoring eyes. "He chooses to be close to me," Sarah said softly, scratching behind his ears. "No one is making him do this. There's no reward waiting for him. He just wants to be near me because he loves me." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the security officers, who had been ready to intervene at any moment, found themselves watching something they had never seen before. "Play dead? Buddy?" Sarah said suddenly. Buddy immediately rolled onto his back and lay perfectly still, his legs in the air, his eyes closed. The aliens panicked. Several thought the creature had actually died. Others assumed some kind of weapon had been used, but then Sarah said, "Okay, you're alive again." And Buddy immediately rolled over and jumped to his feet, tail wagging. "It was pretending," Officer Krill said in amazement. "The creature was pretending to be dead." "That's right," Sarah said. "He was playing. Dogs love to play. It's how they have fun." Fun. Another concept that most aliens didn't associate with predators. Sarah stood up and began moving around the chamber in an exaggerated, playful way. She crouched down low, then jumped up. She ran a few steps, then stopped suddenly. Buddy immediately began copying her movements. He crouched down with his front legs stretched out and his rear end in the air, the classic play bow. Then he would run and jump and spin in circles. The two of them played together for several minutes, chasing each other around the chamber. Sarah laughed with genuine joy. Buddy made happy barking sounds and wiggled his whole body with excitement. The aliens watched in fascination. This was not the behavior of master and weapon. This was not training or control. This was pure, shared happiness between two different species. "By the Seven Suns," whispered Counselor Vex. They are actually enjoying themselves. When Sarah and Buddy finally stopped playing, both were breathing hard. Sarah sat down, and Buddy immediately came over to her, seeking attention and affection. "This is what dogs are," Sarah said to the cameras. "They're not beasts or weapons. They're companions, partners, family. They share our lives because they want to, not because they have to." The demonstration ended, but the discussions among the council continued long into the night. What they had witnessed challenged everything they thought they knew about interspecies relationships. Some still insisted that the human was deluding herself about the creature's true nature. But others, led by Elder Nix, began to wonder if perhaps they had been the ones who were mistaken. "What if," Elder Nix asked the assembled council, "the human is telling the truth? What if we have been looking at this relationship through the lens of our own fears instead of seeing it as it really is?" It was a question that would change everything. The attack came without warning in the middle of the night cycle. Sarah was sleeping peacefully in her quarters when the lights began flashing red. Emergency alarms filled the air with harsh wailing sounds. Buddy jumped up from his bed, instantly alert. "All citizens report to designated safe areas immediately," came the announcement in dozens of languages. "This is not a drill. The station is under attack." Sarah grabbed her emergency kit and opened her door. The corridors were filled with aliens running in panic. Some moved on legs, others on tentacles, and a few seemed to float above the ground. "What's happening?" Sarah asked a passing station worker. "Pirates," the alien gasped without stopping. "They broke through the outer defenses. They're boarding the station." Sarah felt her heart racing. She had never been in a real emergency before, but she knew she had to get to safety. She joined the crowd moving toward the protected areas deep in the station's core. Buddy stayed close beside her, his ears flat against his head. He could sense the fear all around them. The pirates who attacked Nexus Prime were known throughout the galaxy as the Crimson Fleet. They specialized in raiding peaceful stations and stealing valuable technology. They had never attacked something as important as the Council Station before. Explosions shook the station as the pirates blasted their way through security barriers. The lights flickered and went out in some sections. Emergency power cast everything in an eerie red glow. Sarah and Buddy were halfway to the safe zone when disaster struck. A massive explosion rocked the corridor they were in. The ceiling collapsed, sending metal beams and debris crashing down. The crowd scattered in terror. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to see or breathe. Sarah found herself separated from the main group, alone in a damaged section of the corridor. "Help!" She heard a voice crying from somewhere in the debris. "Someone help us!" Sarah looked around frantically. The voice seemed to be coming from behind a pile of twisted metal and broken concrete. "Hello?" she called back. "Where are you?" "Here, under the debris." "I'm trapped!" Sarah climbed over the wreckage, following the voice. She found a small opening in the pile of rubble. Peering through it, she could see 3 small aliens huddled together in a pocket of space. They were younglings from the crystal-like species. Their normally bright bodies were dim with fear and pain. One of them seemed to be injured. "Don't worry," Sarah said. "I'll get you out of there." But when she tried to move the debris, it was too heavy. The metal beams were massive, designed to support the station's structure. She wasn't strong enough to lift them alone. "I need to go get help," she told the trapped aliens. "I'll be right back." "No," one of them cried. "Don't leave us." "The ceiling might collapse more." Sarah looked at the unstable debris pile. The youngling was right. The whole thing could come down at any moment. That's when Buddy stepped forward. He had been watching everything with intelligent eyes. Now he approached the debris pile and began sniffing around the edges. His nose twitched as he picked up scents from the trapped aliens. "What are you doing, boy?" Sarah asked. Buddy ignored her question. He was working now, following instincts that had been bred into his kind for thousands of years. He began pawing at a section of the debris that looked different from the rest. "Careful, Buddy," Sarah warned, but she watched as he seemed to find something. He whined softly and looked back at her, then pawed at the spot again. Sarah came over to look. Where Buddy had been digging, she could see a gap between 2 metal beams. It was narrow, but it might be wide enough for someone small to crawl through. "You found another way in," she breathed. "Good boy." She tried to squeeze through the gap, but she was too big. The space was barely wide enough for a child, but it was exactly the right size for a dog. "Buddy," Sarah said carefully, "I need you to go in there. Can you do that?" Buddy looked at the dark, dangerous opening. Every instinct told him it was unsafe. The metal groaned and shifted. The air smelled of danger and fear. But Sarah needed him to do this. And that was all that mattered. He squeezed through the gap, disappearing into the darkness of the debris pile. From inside, Sarah could hear him moving around. The trapped aliens made sounds of terror. "A predator," one of them wailed. "It's going to kill us." "No," Sarah called through the debris. "He's here to help you. His name is Buddy, he won't hurt you." But the young aliens didn't understand. They had grown up hearing stories about the dangerous beasts that humans kept. Now one of those monsters was in their small dark prison with them. Inside the debris pile, Buddy found the three frightened younglings. They were pressed against the far wall of their tiny space, trembling with fear. Their crystal bodies flickered with distress signals. Buddy could smell their fear. He could also smell blood from the injured one. But instead of frightening them more, he did something remarkable. He lay down on his belly, making himself as small and non-threatening as possible. Then he began to whine softly, the same sound he made when he was trying to comfort Sarah. The younglings stopped screaming. This was not the behavior they expected from a vicious predator. Buddy crawled forward slowly, still on his belly. When he reached the injured youngling, he gently licked the small creature's wound. The saliva of dogs contains enzymes that help heal cuts. It was a simple instinct, something Buddy did automatically when he encountered injury. But to the young aliens, it looked like the beast was tending to their friend's wound. "He's
helping,"
whispered one of them. Outside, Sarah was trying desperately to clear more debris to create a bigger opening. Other aliens had found them and were trying to help, but the work was slow and dangerous. "How are they doing in there?" Sarah called to Buddy. She heard a soft bark in response. Then she heard something that made her heart soar. One of the young aliens was making a sound that could only be described as laughter. Inside the debris pile, something amazing was happening. The injured youngling was feeling better, and Buddy had begun to play with the other two. He was gently pawing at them, the same way he played with human children. The young aliens had never experienced anything like this. Adults of their species were formal and serious. But this creature seemed to understand that they were scared and were trying to make them feel better. Soon all three younglings were giggling and trying to pet Buddy's soft fur. They had completely forgotten their fear. "The beast is playing with them," reported one of the rescue workers in amazement. "It's actually keeping them calm." Word of what was happening spread quickly through the station. Even in the middle of the emergency, aliens stopped to listen to reports of the human's companion risking its life to comfort trapped younglings. It took 2 hours to clear enough debris to safely extract the trapped aliens. When they finally created an opening large enough for everyone to get out, Buddy emerged first, followed by 3 very happy young aliens who didn't want to leave their new friend. The injured youngling was taken to the medical bay, but not before hugging Buddy one more time. "He saved us," the youngling told everyone who would listen. "The beast saved us and played with us and made us feel safe." The pirate attack was eventually repelled, but the real victory was something much more important. Throughout the station, aliens were talking about what they had witnessed. A creature they had been told was dangerous had instead shown compassion, bravery, and gentleness. The human's beast had risked its own life to help aliens it had never met before. Council leader Morthak visited Sarah and Buddy in the medical bay, where they were being checked for injuries. "Ambassador Chen," he said formally, "we owe you and your companion a debt of gratitude." Buddy was just being himself, Sarah replied. "This is what dogs do. They help, they protect. They care about others, even strangers." Morthak looked down at Buddy, who was lying peacefully next to Sarah's bed. The creature that had terrified him just days before now looked different somehow. "Perhaps," Morthak said slowly, "we have misunderstood the nature of your relationship." It was the first crack in the wall of fear and misunderstanding, and it would grow into something much larger. The council chamber looked very different 3 days after the pirate attack. The formal seating arrangement had been changed. Instead of a circle that separated species from each other, the chairs were arranged in smaller groups that encouraged conversation. Sarah sat in the center with Buddy beside her, but this time no one looked afraid. Several of the younger council members had actually asked if they could sit closer to get a better look at him. The Elder Nix began the session with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "We have been wrong," she said simply. Not just mistaken, but fundamentally wrong about what we have been observing. Council Leader Morthak nodded in agreement. His scales had returned to their normal color, no longer shifting with stress when he looked at Buddy. The events of 3 days ago have forced us to examine our assumptions, Morthak said. What we interpreted as dangerous behavior was actually something our languages don't even have words for. Counselor Vex, who had been the most skeptical of all, stood to address the chamber. His logical mind had spent days analyzing what he had witnessed. I have reviewed all our observations of human-canine relationships, he reported. When I removed our preconceptions about predator behavior, a different pattern emerged entirely. He activated a holographic display showing scenes from Earth. But now, instead of seeing humans with dangerous beasts, the council members saw something else. Children playing safely with large dogs, elderly humans being guided by service animals, rescue workers with dogs who found lost people, soldiers whose dogs helped them detect danger and provided emotional support. They are partners, Vex continued. True partners. The humans provide food, shelter, and medical care. The canines provide protection, assistance, and emotional support. But more than that, he paused, struggling with concepts his logical mind had difficulty processing. They genuinely care for each other's welfare, not as a calculated exchange, but as what the human calls love. Representative Flux spoke next, her crystal body now glowing with warm colors instead of the harsh alarm signals she had shown before. The younglings who were rescued have been talking to their families, she said. They describe the human's companion as gentle, playful, and protective. They say he made them feel safe during the most frightening experience of their lives. She turned to look at Buddy, who was lying peacefully beside Sarah's chair. We saw a monster where there was actually a guardian. Elder Nyx rose slowly, her ancient frame moving with careful dignity. In all my years studying galactic cultures, I have never encountered anything like this relationship. Most species form alliances based on mutual benefit. Some show affection for their offspring. A few even develop friendships within their own kind. She paused, looking directly at Sarah and Buddy. But this is something unprecedented. Two completely different species with different languages, different biologies, different lifespans, have formed a bond that transcends all those barriers. How is it possible? Asked Navigator Yorn, who had been watching the proceedings with fascination. Sarah had been waiting for this question. She stood slowly, with Buddy rising to stand beside her. It's possible because both humans and dogs are social species, she explained. We both evolved in groups. We both understand loyalty, cooperation, and affection. When our ancestors first met thousands of years ago, we recognized something familiar in each other. She reached down to stroke Buddy's head, and his tail wagged gently. Dogs chose to live with us, Sarah continued. We didn't force them or train them into submission. They saw the benefits of partnership and decided to join our families. Over time, we evolved together. They became more gentle and trusting. We became more responsible and caring. But what do you gain from this relationship? Asked Commander Zex. Your companion cannot pilot ships or build technology. What practical benefit does he provide? Sarah smiled. Buddy gives me something that technology cannot provide. He gives me unconditional love and companionship. When I'm sad, he comforts me. When I'm happy, he shares my joy. When I'm in danger, he protects me without thinking about his own safety. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. He makes me a better person, more patient, more caring, more responsible, and in return I give him the best life I can. I feed him, play with him, take care of him when he's sick, and love him just as much as he loves me. The chamber was quiet as the council members absorbed this explanation. The concept of love between species was still difficult for many of them to understand. But then something unexpected happened. The 3 young aliens who had been rescued during the pirate attack entered the chamber with their parents. They had asked to attend the session, and Elder Nyx had agreed to let them speak. The smallest youngling, who had been injured in the collapse, stepped forward. Her crystal body glowed with healthy light now. The good beast helped us, she said in her high, clear voice. He was not scary. He was nice. He played with us and made us feel better. Her words were translated into dozens of languages simultaneously, but their meaning was clear in any language. We want to thank him, said another youngling. Can we pet him like the human does? Sarah looked to the council for permission. Morthak nodded slowly. Buddy, Sarah said softly, Some friends want to say hello.
Can you be very gentle?
Buddy seemed to understand the importance of the moment. He walked slowly over to the young aliens and sat down in front of them, making himself as non-threatening as possible. The younglings reached out with tentative touches, running their crystalline fingers through his soft fur. Buddy remained perfectly still, allowing them to explore this new experience. One of them giggled when Buddy's tail wagged. Another made happy chirping sounds when he gently licked their hand. The adult aliens in the chamber watched in amazement as their children interacted fearlessly with a creature they had been taught to see as dangerous. "This is what we have been missing," Elder Nick said quietly. "We have been so focused on survival and advancement that we forgot about connection." Council Leader Morthak stood to make the final announcement. After careful consideration and extensive observation, the Galactic Council hereby grants humanity full membership in our alliance, and he declared, "But more than that, we ask humanity to serve as our ambassadors for a new kind of relationship." He looked directly at Sarah and Buddy. "You have shown us something we never imagined possible. If two species can form such a bond of trust and affection, perhaps there is hope for greater understanding among all of us." Sarah felt tears of joy running down her cheeks. "We accept," she said, "both the membership and the responsibility. There is one condition," added Elder Nix with what might have been a smile on her ancient face. "Buddy must be granted official status as Earth's first interspecies ambassador. We believe the galaxy needs more good boys like him." The chamber erupted in sounds of approval from dozens of different species. It was the first time in Council history that a non-sentient being had been given such an honor. As the session ended and aliens began to approach Sarah and Buddy, wanting to meet them personally, Elder Nix pulled Sarah aside. "You have changed everything," the ancient alien said. "Not just our understanding of your species, but our understanding of what's possible between different forms of life." Sarah looked down at Buddy, who was happily accepting attention from a group of alien diplomats who would have run from him in terror just a week before. "That's what dogs do," she said simply. "They bring out the best in everyone they meet." Years later, when historians wrote about the day that changed galactic civilization, they would focus on the moment when fear gave way to understanding. When prejudice was replaced by curiosity, when the galaxy learned that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or weapons, but the simple capacity for love between different species. And at the center of that historic change was a golden retriever named Buddy, who had no idea he was a hero. He only knew that he was a very good boy who had made a lot of new friends. The galaxy would never be the same.